Hey, good afternoon, everybody. And no, this is not Team Tim, even though it is during the Team Tim time. Our counterparts, Jesse and Tim Schnur, were unavailable this week. And so I reached out to Heather and was like, hey, there's this new thing that just came out like 24, 36 hours ago. I started digging in. You want to chat about it? And yeah, so we're here in lieu of Team Tim. We're here with our great friend Heather, and we have some really interesting stuff we're going to talk about today. But before we do that, I want to give Heather an opportunity to say hello and introduce herself and talk about, kind of some of the things that's going on in your world.
Well, evidently, I had a lot going on in my world this week, a lot like everybody else, I'm sure, coming into the summer. But I have a new position part-time with the Missouri Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. And so you see that streaming right there. I'm very excited about that. And it may or may not come up in our conversation today. So make sure you visit the link and take a look at that. We're a nonprofit. So the other things going on in my world, of course, are all the changes happening with cybersecurity, like everybody else who's watching. So I'm sure we're going to dig into that. Tim, you look to be muted. It's very Friday.
I know, it's very Friday. And yeah, I am muted because, I guess I really don't want to talk to people today because it's Friday. It's an exhausting week, but, we're excited. Like this whole Missouri Center of Cyber Excellence, like I'm really interested to kind of learn a little bit more about what that is. Tell us a little bit about that.
I've been volunteering here steering committee-wise for about a year, and we have a SOC that is grant funded, and we are looking to train students and serve the community in an affordable and symbiotic sort of way. Train students, work on workforce. This area here in Missouri, Springfield, Missouri area is about 500,000 people, and so we are headquarters to Bass Pro, O'Reilly Automotive, and some other medical sorts of things. So we have a decent amount of industry happening here, as well as some nonprofits and 4 universities, a community college. Wow. And so it's serving this community. And then, of course, Missouri is a bigger state. We also have St. Louis City and a whole lot of rural. And within all these places, of course, there are municipalities and there are county governments and there are school systems. And obviously there's critical infrastructure. So we see, as we are in our crawl phase right now in building out this organization, we're working on, my piece is working on curriculum for this. And also some of the higher level strategy things with the steering committee team is getting this off the ground in the fall with some interns who will be paid. And they'll work in the SOC, they'll work on assessments, they'll take additional coursework because they're going to come to us with all different sorts of skill levels. Some will be just starting out and we'll get them ready potentially for community college in that program, which does have a really good program in terms of certifications and also the knowledge behind them for the students. And then that internship opportunity, because as we know, it is very hard to get work in cybersecurity as an entry-level person without that experience. So these are the problems we're seeking to solve. And then if we're super, super successful, we're hopeful we can take this model, fully build it out, and then offer it to other states and sections of the United States as this is a model. We've done it. Here's how you do it. Go ahead, take it and run. So we're a nonprofit, and that's my thing right now.
Right. Well, that's awesome, especially the educational piece, because it's literally tying right into what we're talking about today, which is the National Cyber Strategy, the version 2.0 that came out on May 7th. And there's a big initiative around educating the workforce, right? There's a big initiative around kind of what you're doing. And just seems like they're like, did we plan this? How did that happen?
I made a comment on something you did, and you're like, hey, you want to come on my podcast on Friday? Even though it's Wednesday midday, it's like, sure, let's do that.
Exactly. So the whole education piece, I was just trying to find it. EDUCAT education. So there's 23 mentions of the word education in this document. Anyways, before I get into that, I want to kind of like backpedal a little bit and talk a little bit about what the heck is this National Cyber Strategy thing, right? For those of you that are unaware, The first iteration came out way back in July of 2023. And it was really around the administration's this whole overarching National Cybersecurity Strategy implementation plan. It's a mouthful. It's on my other screen. I'm reading it, right? Make sure I get the wording correct.
You haven't memorized the document and its sections quite yet since Wednesday? Not fully?
I did spend a bunch of time, y'all knew me, drives my team nuts because I wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning and I start diving deep into this. And I'm like, ooh, blog post, ooh, article, ooh, put it in there. Drives my team nuts because I'm like, they're probably still in bed. And I'm like eyeball deep into reading a 70-page document and, digesting it in great detail. So, but yeah,
I'm marking mine up with pink ink, just so you know, I match your hat on my notes on the document. So
love that. Well, you all know we have our new granddaughter, so pink is our color. Our grandson will be here in the fall, so then I'll switch to blue, and then I'll have to get a hat that's half blue and half pink, and then I don't know, purple, green, and all the other colors too. Because, anyways, so yeah, the administration put something out about a year ago, July 23, talking about this big initiative for basically defending our digital borders and helping to protect eventually the small businesses, right? And, were you familiar with the first iteration, and did you have any sort of background or any information, any research that you've done on it?
I tend to look at the sweeping government, let's do this sort of things without how you measure them, just lightly. So I'll pay attention to some degree, unless you ask me to come on a podcast in which I'll read the actual whole thing. So I look through here, I learned the pillars, I learned the sections, I did the reading, and I was not that familiar with the first one other than the precursory glance I gave it. But I do come from, this is a well-known fact, if you've talked to me before, I come from an export compliance background. So when you say digital borders, I'm all very excited because I know all about those digital borders. So as I read through this, it was from those lenses of the export compliance, the work I'm doing in cybersecurity, and obviously the look at, like I said, this is very broad yet. And then each quarter, there's something else going on here, as well as listing in the document what's done. And so the roadmap of the order of execution within the pillars. So that was my pinking write up this morning, is trying to tie all that together.
Gotcha.
And yesterday, I didn't read it all this morning.
No. And you know what? Now I'm realizing we're 10 minutes in and I forgot to introduce myself. But
you got to do that.
I did? I
thought I did. To do that.
Whatever. Tim Golden, founder of Compliance Scorecard, where we help keep your risk in check by having that risk conversation with your customer using our easy to understand risk and compliance scorecards. Yeah, see it, demo link, do the thing. All right, I'm done. So I always forget that sometimes. I need to be better at doing the ask, right? It's one of the things my team always challenges me with is make sure you do the ask. So anyways, so the whole premise around, both of the strategies from the first iteration to now the second is, as I said, defending these digital borders and having some, critical pieces, or what they call pillars, of how that can happen, the entities and organizations involved in those things, and put some timelines on it, right? Put some action items, and you're right. It is very high level, but it does have some deadlines. It does call out some people. Maybe what I should do is I should just share that so people can see. Let's see. I think I want this one. Yeah. So people can start to see, some of the things. So first and foremost, once you get past the 600 pages of table of contents, before we do, the document is fairly well structured. And myself, I enjoy well-structured documentation. And, they made part of it visually appealing by putting new initiatives in a blue box. So as you're quickly scanning through the document, you can then quickly see whatever the quote unquote new sections are, right? So I really liked that. Like, oh, hey, listen, we can quickly and easily see kind of what's new. We can quickly and easily see things that have a completion date of Q2 and be able to digest this pretty quickly. I want to see new stuff. I look at the blue. I want to see stuff that should be completed. I look at the yellow. So that's great.
Unless you're visually impaired or you print the document, in which case it would have been nice if they had some corresponding symbols as well. But you're right, it is a really well put together document.
Yeah. Minus the 600 pages of as I'm scrolling through the table of contents, which I think is good, but yeah, it's a little condensed. I really wish this was a Word document because I love where in Word you can click the header and it'll collapse, or you can click the entire TOC and it'll just disappear. But so be it. I don't think they'd want to put out a Word document because then the whole edit and yada, yada, yada. So, but, defend critical infrastructure. Yeah, I would agree with that. Pillar one. And I don't want to go into every single gory detail because obviously our audience here is the managed services community, right? Our IT people, right? Our cybersecurity infosec people. And when I first did my first pass through, I was really looking for how does this apply to an MSP? In fact, I even had a couple of conversations with a few other organizations and entities talking to about this. And the first thing they asked me was, how many times does managed service provider, MSP, or CSP show up in the document? The answer is none.
Yeah.
But there's always that but. There is a huge, huge focus on this public-private partnership collaboration. Right. And if you start to dig through, what does that mean specifically? I mean, I could go on and on and on and on. When I look at the sort of public partner verbiage within the document, I kind of equate that to organizations like NIST and CIS now playing together, because that wasn't always the case. Right. And then with NIST and CIS and the Center of Excellence working together with MSPs and small businesses, like it is that chain and snowball effect. I look at it like the federal, pardon?
Frameworks.
Yeah. Well, the federal government can't really come out and say everybody in the business in the entire world has to do this.
Yeah.
Not only that, but they probably need people like a Heather and other cybersecurity professionals in the trenches have a seat at the table or have a voice in the conversation, right? So this whole idea of the public partnership, public-private partner, wow, that's a mouthful.
The idea of almost a coalition of everybody working together is the feeling I got reading it all. And as you said, I even took public to mean the agencies themselves that are affected. So it goes really broad from the practitioner to the organization to the really big company who might be funding some of the nonprofits. Just real collaboration effort here potential.
Well, and here's the thing, having worked in, government contracting in different entities and different executive branches and departments within those executive branches, it was really astonishing to me to see how they never talk to each other.
Yeah.
You look at Department of Ed versus Department of Defense versus Health and Human Services. They didn't really ever talk to each other, right? In the work that we were doing actually spanned a bunch of different departments and a bunch of different individual entities within those departments. And so here I am working through 853, that's NIST special publication 853, quote unquote FedRAMP, whatever, in one organization and one entity doing all that work. And then when we had to go and do stuff with, I don't know, Health and Human Services, I had to do it all over again.
Yeah, and like they're different companies instead of one unified federal government. I mean, that's the operational realization of duplication of effort.
But you take that a step further, right? I think the federal government, at least in my opinion, is starting to realize like us IT folks, us MSPs, us cybersecurity professionals, we're the ones in the trenches every day. We probably need them at the table and having a voice in this conversation. Now, there needs to be a process because, opinions are like noses. Everybody has one and they all smell. So, maybe partnering with CISA or CompTIA or some of those that have a structured or I don't know, maybe the Missouri Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. I don't know. And they've been spinning up more of these cybersecurity of excellences across the country, at least in some of the research I've been doing.
There are a few.
Before we kind of like dive deep, I know you had some very specific questions. We kind of bantered on email and whatnot, LinkedIn back and forth. Talk to me about, some of your thoughts. Let's see if maybe we can try to answer some of those questions.
I get to be the interviewer. That's the the Tims and the Jesse. I'll just take over and ask you some questions. So one of the things I was thinking in the traditional, how we define a simple relationship between an MSSP and an MSP or other sorts of partnerships, what is the simplest thing to implement as MSPs are working more in providing comprehensive services to their clientele? So the way I wrote it originally was, do you advocate that MSPs add InfoSec staff and upskill existing staff, or do we do these sorts of MSSP-like activity through these partnerships? And what works best? And do we shift from one to the other based on needs? So whole paragraph for you to answer.
No, and I want your thoughts on this as well, because this is not the Tim show. So it's something that the industry has struggled with a lot. Like, can you define what the difference is between an MSP and an MSSP? Okay, we're not answering that today. But let's just make we've been fighting with that at CompTIA for longer than I'd like to admit. Or others. It's in. I don't even. I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna go off the rails if we do. So let's just, I guess, level set and make some unfortunate assumptions about the deltas between the two. Right. Part of what I see, a key differentiator between the two would actually having full-time FTE on staff that has the skills, the history, the knowledge, the certifications, the in the trenches work, right? The CISSP, the person that might have come from corporate as a CIO or a CTO, somebody that actually understands at a deep business level and technical level on staff. That understands business risk, that understands cybersecurity risk on staff. I would say that is a key differentiator, at least in my opinion, between the two.
Yes.
And then maybe some of the service offerings within them, right? MSSPs, because they have or should or could have the staff offering a compliance as a service type package, offering that business risk kind of package, that CISO kind of package, the fractional or vCISO kind of package. Whereas maybe a traditional MSP has really smart technicians, but can't speak business. Not that they can't, but you know what I'm getting.
Their role is such that they're busy enough without trying to speak business.
Yeah. So at least I see a couple of those key differentiators. Do you have the right human on staff that you're paying directly? And do they understand the work?
And then there's also the clientele, isn't there, as well? As small as MSP might be serving governments that only have 1 or 2 IT people, maybe only a few computers, and to bring in full bear of everything we can offer in cybersecurity and knowing exactly how to scale up and down to the needs of the clientele as well is going to be another skill level or dimension to place on your person who has both the business savvy and the tech savvy.
Yeah, so Heather, I would ask you, like, what would you see as key differentiators between MSP, MSSSSP, and other quadruple S's, P's, and what's nots?
Well, we like to be the MSSP in those smaller business situations. And so that's where I'm really focused with Missouri Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. I'm the least technical person on staff, and I have 25 years. So that's a beautiful thing right there, is to go in there and try to figure what we're going to do in the needs of the people we serve, and then to skill the organization in that way. So if you have an MSP where you know that its clientele is larger customers, mid-sized businesses, it might make absolute sense to have cybersecurity staff and providing those services in that way. Or it may make sense to partner if you have a smaller organization that's growing and maybe doesn't do all that much with cybersecurity yet. I wouldn't start a program by let's hire our CISSP, bring that person in, and then see what happens. There has to be some sort of strategic plan to what it is you're trying to achieve and to measure, are you getting there? Are you on your path?
People and process, right?
People and process always before technology.
So I think we can agree the difference between the MSSP and the MSP. Obviously, services offered, level of expertise, staff versus not staff, right? And I'd love to be able to hear from our listening audience. Probably open the can of worms. Provide one or two in chat or in the comments. Provide 1 or 2 key differentiators between an MSP and an MSSP. And I'll kind of let that linger out there while we dive a little back deeper into this whole idea of the partnerships. So tell me a little bit about the partnerships from your perspective, Heather.
Okay. So I mentioned Missouri and how it's made up. You've got 2 major cities and you've got a few smaller cities, including ours, which is the biggest of the small, 500,000 sub people in the metropolitan area. But adjacent to us is very rural. And so you go into some of these other counties and you might have cities of 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 800 people, 12,000 people. And then there are county governments, et cetera. So these people, especially when you start talking government, they need services. And that's a specialty of what we do is provide the services as needed to the very small IT staff who need an MSP to supplement what they can do. Because as Wes, one of my counterparts on the steering committee says, the IT person is not only administering the computers, but that person is responsible for all of the cameras and anything that might be technical, that's under the purview of the person. So the MSP, the MSP is coming in. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we used to say if electricity flows through it, weighs more than 5 pounds, or flushes, it's IT's job.
Well, now it's even smaller, right? Because Internet of Things devices can be as small as like my Apple Watch here. So it's not even the 5 pounds, right?
Or your FIDO keys, right?
Key, yeah. So the idea of the breadth of the jobs, and then the MSPs can come in and say, okay, these are the types of clients I work with. And when I work with this type of client, these are the sorts of services we start with. And then the conversations with the clients, like anything in tech, and the people part of it is what are the exact then specific needs beyond the generalized needs of the people we serve. So when you look at something in Missouri Cybersecurity Center of Excellence and the service packs that we're building, we can do anything from pen testing to assessments to, we have a SOC, I think I mentioned, that we're setting up and is just about operational. I haven't been in this week. It might be there. And then the student piece coming in terms of they won't be doing actual adjustments on anything, but we'll be learning from clients who give the permission that their data can be seen and monitored as a real world sort of scenario.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want this to be the Missouri Cybersecurity Center of Excellence hour. I'm just super excited about it, and it fits into what we're talking about.
No, it's great. And I think, it kind of ties right into, so we put
Mhm.
up a blog post, in initial digest. I don't know why it says LinkedIn user instead of whatever, it doesn't matter. But we did put up a blog post talking about this public private piece, right? And so
Mhm.
although the Missouri Center of Cyber Excellence, sorry, mouthful,
It
although
is.
what y'all are doing
MCCOE.
over what y'all are doing over there is a nonprofit working together with small businesses and I presume government entities along the way is a
And
great
MSPs.
example of these things coming together, right? Getting
Yes.
the right people in the right seat at the right time. Oh,
Mhm.
wait, did I just go EOS traction? Sorry. um, Sorry. So for those that don't know, EOS and traction, it's a entrepreneurial operating system. It's how you conduct business. They always
It's
talk
back
about the.
there behind me.
Oh, all right. Well,
Are
there
you
you go.
going to start
So you knew
talking
what I
about
was talking
rocks now?
all right, yeah, we're gonna start talking about rocks. So you
Mhm.
knew what I was talking about. The right people at the right seat at the right
Mhm.
time.
That's all.
And
Right.
and that's kind of what this whole public partnership is all about, right? Is kind of bringing those things together. I wanted to talk a little bit more deeply into this whole idea about secure by design. If you want to kind
Mm.
of pivot to that a little bit.
Sure. The earlier we can educate our people to understand that everybody in every role needs to be thinking about security and then applying it into the job. So I come from software before the cybersecurity piece. And in the 90s, when I started out here, the really big impact to business was making things. So if you had skills in tech, you were called upon to program and make things. And certain people are working in hardware networks, but I was always, I want to make things. And then now the real big call, as we see with this initiative, is we got to secure all those things we made. So, you know, yeah. So
Great.
that's why I'm here and doing what I'm doing. But as you look back through all the things we made, if we can start that secure by design, we have less technical debt we have to clear. And
Mhm.
so we move a little bit further left. We start looking. I gave a presentation about taking a look as a business analyst and putting some security into the processes and the way we think and the questions that we ask, so that in the early phases of software requirements gathering, we're also asking the security questions in terms of who needs to be able to do this piece, who needs to be restricted from being able to do this work. And so there's a
Mm.
very human element, not just, it's beyond cyber hygiene. It's in a way we think. And I could go
Yeah.
on about that all hour, so I need to turn this back over to you to see what you think of that.
Well, no, because you know me, I love analogies and I love stories,
Mhm.
and this is like, we want to build stuff, so we build stuff, and then we forget to secure stuff. It's like, hey, let's build Fort Knox to store all of the country's gold and valuable assets, but let's not put any like glass in the windows or alarms on. In fact, let's not even put doors on it, right? Let's just build this giant vault to store all the stuff in and leave all the windows and doors off, leave all the alarms off, right? I get it.
Mhm.
I came from a software background. I've been writing code for more than 30 years, I'd like to admit to. And, in 1997, we didn't give a crap about that. Like
No, we didn't.
I had a database, which was and I can't believe I'm going to admit this, which was essentially a comma separated text file that sat on the root of the server that you could like
Mhm.
www.something.com/CSV. And there it was. Oh, bad. And we're not doing that now. We learned those lessons, but I had a
Mhm.
database that I could search and that I could do things on, but it was a flat text file sitting open publicly on the internet in
And you had a
1995.
table. You had a
Huh?
table. You didn't
Yeah.
have a
And
database. You had a table.
well, yeah, but the point was it was
Yeah, I
roll
know.
roll stuff out fast
Mhm.
and forget about the security along the way. And that's
Yeah.
pivoting, right? And it's not just, piss poor developers like I was in the 1990s have changed, but it is even more so with this concept of secure by design,
Yeah.
right? I'm not going to throw one of the big four under the bus, something that's kind of smallish and soft. I don't know. I'm not going to throw them under the bus. But when we roll out a new tenant and roll out all of these things for email and blah 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 for these really small soft things or these micro things, they're
I think you
not
can give up the hint there. Everybody knows.
they're not necessarily secure by design.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of misconfiguration, or I even want to use that. There's a lot of configuration pieces that are just not locked down from day one.
Like, Copilot.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and we talked about that a couple of months ago on Team Tim and on Compliance Scorecard, and it boiled down to like security is an inconvenience.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so, whatever the rationale was of lock it down first and open it up. Now it was, here's everything and start to lock it down appropriately. The whole concept now is like, I built Fort Knox. It doesn't have a door. It doesn't have a window. It has absolutely no way to get into it. It's storing all the gold and all the sensitive stuff, the crown jewels, but you physically cannot get into it unless you burrow a hole. So it is, quote, quote, secure by design, quote, unquote. And
but is it usable?
Yeah, is it usable? No. And this is where, adding things as an MSP or as an MSSP, this is where, these differentiators and these partnerships can start to come together is lock all that stuff down. Do you know how many configuration controls are in M365? A lot, right? And if you don't know what they do,
yeah,
and you turn them all on by default, you're going to break stuff, right? There's a M365 hardening guide that CIS put out. I know we're getting kind of deep off the rails here, but this whole concept of secure by design and zero trust is building the Fort Knox with no windows or doors, as opposed to my flat open public CSV files sitting on the interweb 20, 30 plus years ago. And the balance between the two.
Yeah, I think you said it. It's a continuum is another way to look at it. There's the zero security other than the fact that you actually have to know the IP. We were accessing stuff by IP back in the 90s sometimes. Yeah. The IP or how to get to the website. I mean, that was the security on some of these things. And then you go all the way to nobody can get into it. And so it's completely unusable. And where do you find that exact balance? And how do you standardize to what it is that you hope to achieve? So that's the next piece to talk about.
So how does this apply to an MSP or an MSSP when we think of secure by design and zero trust?
People and processes and working on the technology. I mean, isn't that where we bring everything?
True. I would look at because I'm, tangible, tab A, slot B, like, what do I want to do first?
Okay.
Right. Okay. Like, I don't know, pick on Microsoft. I want to go into Microsoft. I want to look at the security scorecard. And when you do that, by the way, in the Microsoft dashboard, it's going to have a list of recommendations.
Yeah.
With some of them are actually one-click fix, right? So again, your mileage will vary and do your homework, but start there, right? So we're seeing like Microsoft actually putting in, here's the things you should probably fix. Oh, I wonder where that came from. Maybe that came from, I don't know, some kind of public-private partnership and putting out there the whole secure by design. I don't know, maybe, right? Maybe because version 1 of the National Cyber Strategy was like, y'all need to fix this.
Yeah.
We want to work together. We need to fix it. Or maybe it was just Microsoft realizing we should do this work because it is best practice. So as an MSP, log into the tenant, go to security.microsoft.com and log into the tenant and look at the recommendations. I bet a vast majority of them not only have one-click fixes, but have minimal end user impact, i.e. the inconvenience factor. but it ends up making you more secure. The whole
Find that
concept of
spot. Yeah, on that continuum, find that sweet spot.
right. And then the whole idea is zero trust. I mean, government's been pushing that forever. We've been pushing that forever. We've been talking, the 2FA. I can't believe we're still talking 2FA, FIDO keys, the whole 9 yards. I don't want to spend a ton of time on zero trust. Did you have any thoughts on it, though?
I think there was somebody's comment was floating around, if you want to share that.
This one.
All right. Back in the day. That was one of them.
Yeah, they were called tables.
Yeah. We didn't have those there databases. We had tables. I wrote something Paradox for Windows. And before that, its predecessor was Paradox for DOS. That'll date me. That was so much
Paradox.
Yeah. Cold Fusion, Paradox. All that stuff. But yeah, these were actual database stuff. And gosh, we could have a whole episode of just like memory lane. I could show you stuff in my office and hold up the Atari and the Commodore 64. But yeah, you're right.
All you need to do is go to waybackmachine.org. I only give out my very first internet domain to very trusted people because I know they're going to go look at it on Wayback and be like,
yeah. I don't give mine out. It's my student number at Mizzou when I was in grad school, and I learned some things about myself when I went back and looked for that.
Yeah, I did too. Hey, the blink tag doesn't work anymore.
I know. I missed the blink tag. No.
Nor does the marquee. So continuing on a little deeper into the cyber strategy, so we talked about, and I want to recap, we talked about these partnerships. We talked about secure by design. I want to talk a little bit more, and actually I was going to take this, I'm just going to put it as a banner over here, right? So let me do a banner so that way we can have it up on. I guess I can't do the whole thing. I guess I'll just put the subject up here, right?
Okay.
So as an MSP, and one of the, pieces of this whole national cyber strategy is identifying risk barriers and taking corrective actions, right? So Heather, what would you think, what kind of things come to mind when you think about that?
I always think of people first. So there are a lot of people who are not going to like you locking things down if you don't explain what's going on and how it's to their benefit. So I see some initiatives in the future in really that the work I try to do, just the things, me being me, is trying to explain how this invisible stuff, these threat actors, they're invisible but not imaginary. So if anybody's read anything I've written, I say that a whole lot. And the reason behind what we're doing is so that everybody keeps their jobs and we keep doing business. We make the widgets or we make the burgers or we make and do whatever we make and do. And that these are necessary changes in our modern age, that even though things don't seem that different than 7-8 years ago, there have been major, major changes. So security risk barriers, I would start with people. I love people, but people need to understand the reason behind some of the things we're going to be doing. And so that's a corporate culture thing. So the corrective action part of that is training. So I'll turn it back over to you, Tim. What do you think?
Well, I'm always going to go to, and I agree, people, process, technology, or people, process, policy. I'm going to go back to just the way my brain thinks around identify security risk. Okay, I should probably do a risk assessment. I should probably pick a framework, and I should probably figure out where those risks actually lie. Maybe like, I don't know, CIS IG1, right? And walk through that. What are you doing?
The deep in thought, you made like the best push over into our group there for CIS and the work we've done there. Yeah,
exactly. And so whether you do that work in Excel or some platform or whatever, like pick a framework and go. I say this all the time. And you know what? Do it on yourself first, because you're going to gain a couple of things. You're going to gain the knowledge of what to do and what to think about and how to go about doing the remediation after the fact. And then you're going to have that efficiency to be able to do it with your customers.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's a really stinking good framework as well. and the interplay with NIST and the cybersecurity framework in its now new version 2.0 with its emphasis on governance. So.
Well, and that is a result of NIST and CISA working together, right? That is a result, literally, if we go back to the very first thing that we talked about, right? There's history between NIST and CISA, and I'll just leave it at that. Go do some Googling, you'll figure it out. But it's great. It's great to see them now starting to work together because it's only going to be better for everyone. You know me, I love the words better together, right? So first thing I think, when I think about, the security barriers, the risk barriers, do an assessment, right? Go to the doctor's office and get a diagnosis.
And then go straight to Control 14 and look at security awareness and training.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly. Well, I do love CIS. I do love the fact that there's a security awareness training aspect. I don't love that it's 7 controls because math. Because math. Yeah. Right. I'm not a math genius, but I know when you have when you have 14 things and 7 of them are one category, that kind of skews the numbers a little bit. Because if you check off 7 things in one category, it's math. Law of averages. Anyways,
we don't do math on Fridays, right, Tim?
I can do math most of the days. Unfortunately, my COO Maureen is our math whiz. So, not that I'm not a math whiz. I just write code. No, I just write the code to make it happen. Something like that.
Yes, exactly.
I used to. So, step 1, do a risk assessment. Step 2, identify those barriers. Step 3, create a plan to take corrective action. So as an MSP, when we look at this national cyber strategy, there's a component there for you to be able to help small businesses by doing risk assessments and by doing those small businesses that work with federal entities, whether it's the Department of Defense, whether it's a research company working with the Department of Ed, whether it's a healthcare organization with an HHS requirement for data subjects, right? You can conduct a risk assessment and charge for it, by the way. Right?
Comprehensive risk assessment, yes.
You should not be doing those things for free as an MSP. And when you do those services and you discover those gaps, now you can actually have billable project work to help them mitigate it. Right?
And it's quantitative too. You have a very clear with the framework. This is what we're doing. Here's why we're addressing it. Here's the impact to your specific business with the risk assessment with the information you've given me. And very valuable.
I'm just pulling my notes. That's why I keep looking over here because I'm looking at my 4th monitor over there with my notes because I want to have you front and center and our audience front and center, but I still need my notes. And so, kind of bringing it all back, there are a lot of new individual initiatives within this document. They've accomplished a lot along the way, don't get me wrong, and we still have a long way to go. And the impact on the MSP, 36 hours after publishing is not a lot, but it will be, right? It will eventually, because everything flows downhill, right? We're going to see the ability for us to be able to start to collaborate. And I use us loosely, right? Maybe it's an organization like CompTIA working with CISA. I don't know. I have no insight into that, no, backdoor knowledge, but, that could be this public-private working together, right? Maybe there's, Microsoft working directly with NIST to become secure by default. And every new Microsoft tenant as of January 2025, it's locked down. I don't know. Maybe that would be awesome.
That would be interesting. Yeah.
I would love that. I don't know if that would actually happen, but I would love that. What are some other thoughts, Heather? I know we had a whole boatload of questions.
Oh, we did. We did. We were looking at the idea too of the international collaboration, because say everything works well with the intra-agency and the public-private and some of the allies, and sharing what we're doing well with cybersecurity and then what other countries are doing well with cybersecurity. There's pieces in this document about accelerating the detection of threats, doing advanced threat hunting, all sorts of things. There's even mention of quantum computing and some of the emergent technologies. And then again, going back to collaboration with other countries. There's even a section in here about dealing with teenage hackers.
I saw that.
Why do we have to deal with them differently than other cyber criminals? But the teenage, and lapsus is mentioned. It's fascinating. So if nothing else, go immediately find this document and look for that section, because that's amusing. But those are the things that I spent the time on, and I'll turn it back over to you in just a moment. One of the things from my previous domain with the export compliance is back about a decade ago, President Obama did export control reform with the idea. It's every year there's a big conference called Update. It's in DC. Everybody comes in, they have their thoughts and things that we do in conferences. And the big thing there was to build bigger walls and a stronger fence around fewer things. And so as we start to do more collaboration, we can see, well, what are the things we truly have to protect that are universal, and work to do that. And, quantum breaking and cryptography, that's certainly been an area of emphasis and will continue to be an area of emphasis. But there will be other things in here as well. So there it is. Forge international partnerships to pursue shared goals. Well, there's a compliance piece there, because every time we share information with a foreign nation, especially if it's controlled information, we have what's called the deemed export. So the digital borders thing is a real thing. And, if anybody's interested, we can talk a little more about that. But I want to turn it back over to Tim, just so you can add your piece to that.
Well, so hold on. I'm just trying to save my work here.
Save your work.
Well, what I wanted to do was put it up there, but it ain't going up there for whatever reason.
There it is.
So, no, that ain't it.
That was the first one. Yeah.
Yes. So, Pillar 5, international partnerships. I just did a search. International is mentioned 46 times in if you take out the table of contents, a 50-page document. That's a lot.
It is.
And so, there were a couple of interesting tidbits, like they explicitly called out, 5G services. And why do they call out 5G as opposed to any other thing like backup or 2FA, or I don't know, right? The things that actually affect the cyber liability pocketbook. And then the piece around the juveniles, right? Like I started reading that and kind of digging deeper and trying to do a little more research around that, and I was like, why do we have to explicitly call the kids out and make this, a pillar, or make this a piece of it, right? So, juvenile is mentioned. Yeah, it's in the section about disrupting Pillar 2. So hold on, let me just put this up on screen. Blah, 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 blah. Let me put this up here on.
Just trying to accelerate our widespread how we manage threats faster, facilitate managing threats faster, leaner, all those things.
Yep, disrupt and dismantle threat actors. And they've actually done some good things like that. So 2.1.1, which was published an updated DoD cybersecurity strategy. What is that? Oh, CMMC 800-171-R2, right? And there's a whole boatload of nuance around that, but
not today, Tim. Not today.
Not today. So so we're coming down to like the last 10 minutes. I always like to make sure that our audience, I don't know why my event is not loading. Looks like it just failed on LinkedIn, maybe. Whatever.
This event?
Yeah. Weird. Hold on one second. All right, there we go. LinkedIn. It looks like LinkedIn had a little bit of a hiccup. Sorry about that for folks that were
We
watching.
shared all the answers to the universe while we were gone. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's 42. By the way, you should Google that.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever
I remember
Googled that?
turning 42, and I was really excited that whole year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting a lot
So, so in the last, 5 to 7 minutes here, we always try to want to talk to the MSP community about a key takeaway, right? And I have lots of them. But I wanted to give Heather an opportunity to just come on up and talk about, what are some of the key takeaways that you might, in the 36 hours we've had to research this to date.
The opportunities to serve are always here. This gives a little bit more context, at least, of where the federal government is hoping that we all go. And so we take that with, here's opportunity, here's how we apply what we do that opportunity, what do we need to make strategic changes as an MSP or as an MSSP so that we can better serve our customers. And we look at this document and we say, look at this document, customers, this is what we're doing within this space. So whenever anything new like this comes out, I always try to figure out how it's going to apply to the services I provide. So that's the advice I give.
And for those that are looking for the document, I just dropped it into a chat over there for y'all. So you have a direct link to it. If you wanted to kind of stay up to date, and I am doing the thing that I was told I should be doing. What the hell was that? Is doing the thing that I was told to do, which is make sure that we're talking about our interpretation of some of this, right? So, yeah, you can grab that too. And my takeaway, I suppose how to do this. So I would say, as far as my key takeaway for this national cyber strategy, we have seen our federal government take progression over time. Right? They had a version back in July of 23. Now we have a new version. They've accomplished some things in that first version. They've added things to the new version. This sounds a lot like a risk assessment that an MSP could and should be doing about figuring out what the gaps are, mitigating some of those gaps, and then reevaluating after the fact and wash, rinse, repeat. Kind of sounds like the federal government is almost drinking their own champagne, right? Or, I'm not going
to go there. It's,
eating their own dog food. Like, that
yes.
That's actually starting to do the iteration things that you and I and other practitioners have been preaching about for a long time, which is, hey, we did a thing. We came up with some initiatives. We identified some things that we could get done. We got them done and realized we needed to go do more.
Yes.
So as an MSP, how does this apply to you? I don't know, maybe start by identifying those risk barriers and taking corrective actions on those risk barriers, right? Conducting a risk assessment, identifying those gaps, and working together collaboratively with your customer to mitigate those things and, truly build out this, partnership, whether it's public-private or private-private or MSP to MSP or MSSP.
Non-profits like CompTIA, like Missouri Cybersecurity of Excellence. Yeah.
Exactly. So, in broad strokes, there's a lot here that have come a long way. They've recognized that there are other things the community at large need to do, and that's be better together, work better together, be more cyber resilient together.
You need like swelling music with that because, yes.
It's kind of been my mantra for the last couple of months. For a while, I was all about do something, start something, do something, pick a thing, go somewhere, do a thing, start today. And now, the whole idea of better together, has kind of been my mantra for the last couple of months. But I do believe, listen, at the end of the day, we want to be able to protect our small business, my small business, your nonprofit, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to be able to make sure that our Fort Knox is properly protected so that, the flat text file isn't just sitting on the interweb, right? So that we can feel safer in our digital realm. So I don't know. That's my shtick, and I'm sticking to it. So Heather,
I think it's solid. It's absolutely a solid way to go. And the more tools we have that give us here's what you're doing, why, and the steps and the journey along the way to make these things simpler as we get started, the better. So again, find your partners, build your partnerships.
Any parting words before we kind of give people at least 4 minutes of their day back?
Oh, we're going to give people 4 minutes.
I know they can close.
Really, you have jokes or something, Tim.
Oh wait, so if you don't do this work, wait.
Old Testament, Mr. Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff. Exactly. Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling.
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes.
The dead rising from the grave.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria. Enough.
So I do have a couple of things queued up always. They have mass hysteria. If you're not doing this work, you're the lone cow person, cowboy, cowgirl, lone wolf. You're gonna have that mass hysteria, right? You're gonna be in this little bubble, and that bubble will burst. So work better together.
Yeah, I can't top that. Let's end with that. Everybody have a good weekend.
Well, we could always top with good old Uncle Jesse, because it is Team Tim Friday.
You don't have 500 tools. What the hell are you doing anyway? If you don't have,
I love Jesse. So he's never gonna let me live that down, because I grabbed that out of one of our clips from a while back. But all right, everybody.
My favorites is the I can't see it. Remember that from Star Wars? I can't see it. Yeah.
I do. Excuse me. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. For the moms out there, happy early Mother's Day. My daughter is now a new mom, so we're really excited. This is the first mother/granddaughter's Mother's Day weekend, so we're very excited. So 3 generations, right? So mom, daughter, granddaughter, so we're very excited. So, and to the other moms out there, thank you for putting up with knuckleheads like myself throughout your life, and hopefully at some point we can give back to our moms. And with that, we are out.
Subscribe now.